thank you for joining. And before going on with the presentation, we just want to say a huge thank you to the organizing team. We had a lot of fun coming here. It was my first my first FOSSCOMM after many years, but then yours was in 2019.
Yeah.
So you just keep it up and do it every year in this kind of setup. It's very nice and cozy. We go to lots of conferences, big ones and small ones. I personally have started tending to like more the cozy ones, to talk to people and they are nice and friendly. So today we're going to talk about providing scalable, reliable, open source digital infrastructure. But most importantly, we're going to also share how we do it, so that you do it as well if you want it. Some parts of it are fun, some parts are not. We're going to share all that experience with you. So, but before that, it's very important to share why we are doing this, why we do infrastructure using open source platforms, right? And we started becoming, after many years of being contributors to many open source projects, we got very annoyed with big tech platforms. And we've seen too many conferences, events, that we've seen that not a lot of people, there are a lot of people that are excited about the technologies behind open source. We've met many people that contribute to GitHub and GitLab in open source projects, but they really, some of them don't understand why this is an issue, big tech is an issue, right? And this is also a core element of our team before we started doing what we're doing right now. So, if you went down to our info booth, we had some stickers that said "Fight against GAFAM." Some people know it, some people don't. GAFAM stands for, it's the acronym for Google, which is now Alphabet, Apple, Facebook, which is rebranded to Meta, which something that happened at the same time when they started having a lot of privacy issues and scandals. Amazon and Microsoft. Obviously, these are not the only big tech platforms out there, right? There are lots of them, but these are the most well-known and actually are the ones that a lot of people use on a daily basis without knowing if these are in one way or the other they're using this infrastructure. For example, Amazon, lots of websites or services or mobile applications that we use a service called Amazon Web Services, which is, I think it's a crazy number, like 1/3 of the internet or something like that. So even if we don't know that we're using big tech platforms, we are using it in one way or the other. Right? And just to have an idea, this shows the amount of wealth accumulated and power accumulated in certain companies. These are the 10 largest corporations by market capitalization, and this is only in the first quarter of 2020. I was confused when I was researching about the presentation. So this is 2000. Apple has 2,850 billions in asset valuation in dollars. It's only Apple. So if you add on all the other numbers, it's crazy. And this is only the most well-known brands. There are also other ones as well.
The scary part is that if you combine the evaluation of Apple and Meta, you have just surpassed the entire GDP of France. So just by taking two of the players, you can see that they have quite a lot of resources and assets.
And not going political, but I think no one or nothing should have any kind of power or money or assets or infrastructure in any way. We have governments that have that kind of power, but that we can have a discussion about it over a beer or a drink later on about this. But it's a problem, right? It's a major problem. So again, we can go on and stay here all night, and we can discuss and take the numbers down and see how big of a problem this is. But the major thing started when these platforms, before going big, they were offering the service for free. So you can have an idea of my age when I tell you that I had an ICQ account and an MSN Messenger account, and I'm chatting to my friends. And this was all for free, and that's why I got a Hotmail account after that, which is owned by got bought by Microsoft lately. But gradually, you see that these services, you can use them, but they have also certain limitations. Gmail is a very good example. Gmail gives you, I don't know, like 10 gigabytes. I've not used the Gmail account for years now, but it gives you 10 gigabyte, and you have a limit. And if you need more, and Google Photos on all our Android phones was free, and now you have a limit, and you have to pay if you want more. It's the same with Apple Cloud, and again.
There's two main issues though with providing services for free. The first one is that from the business perspective, it's much harder for there to be competition against these services. But also, if it means it's for free, they have to get their resources back somehow. And that usually means that what they do is they run advertisements which are based on your data. So that's where you also get into infringement of privacy.
But again, all of this is physical infrastructure, like owned by these platforms, even if it's Gmail, email, or Instagram. And this, what they do lately is that they purchase or buy other companies, smaller companies, which usually to be more innovative than the big organizations. In order to get something innovative across I don't know, Amazon, you have to get lots of approvals, and to the end your idea is like cut down, it's like something not very creative. But if you're a small team, you do a lot of creative stuff. And these big companies, because they have billions of euros dollars in assets, they buy these platforms. Instagram is a very good example. And there is no innovation, so they want to be the only player in the game, right? So enough about this. We said before we can go on, and we're more than happy to go downstairs and talk about this. But the conclusion is that these are major problems. The thing is that in such situations, we also propose a solution to this, right? I have a solution, but probably it's a different one from the one that we're going to tell this. And again, it's against everything that is centralized, and it has a lot of power accumulated. But in this presentation, we're going to talk about what we can do to fight back against this crazy situation that we're right now. So the solution, the first part of the solution is that these are big tech, we should use small tech, right? In combination with open source platforms, because we know where our data go usually when we use open source platforms, in principle, not always. So this is the first part of the solution. There are initiatives. There is the Small Technology Foundation, founded by two very active voices in this privacy and against the globally area. And it combines a lot of elements. Open source is one of them, but it combines some of the elements that if you go to the website smalltech.org, you can see what happens, why each one of those is important. One example, I will not go over all of them, because Boris needs also to explain some of the technical part later. For example, if you are on Twitter right now, which just got bought by a 12-year-old person playing with his toys, if you have all your data, all of us are on Twitter, and we have other friends, right? If you want to move out of it and go to somewhere else, because we are annoyed by this little child, spoiled kid, we cannot, because Twitter is not interoperable with other platforms. And that's why, for example, Mastodon, that a lot of people are following me and us all the time now, it's something that provides it to you, and it's also open source, and you can go there easily. And of course, as I mentioned before, we need to, by using open source, we don't have any, what is called vendor lock-in. Again, if you have a Hotmail account, or a Gmail account, or if you're on Dropbox, or Google Calendar, you cannot easily go out of it with your data there. I'm showing off my age now, but I was a huge fan of Flickr when I was living in Athens, with getting into all these street art communities that were there, and we were commenting each other, following, etc., etc. And at some point, Flickr just changed, because it changed hands by the ownership. it was changing all the time what was going on. You could do this and you cannot comment and you have to pay and not pay, etc., etc. So I wanted my data to go out of it. And I couldn't because I was locked in there. And if I left Flickr, I would just lose all my connections with everyone else. And that's why we call to go against any vendor lock-in, which we can achieve by using open source solutions. The second part, it's more, let's say, structured on technical level, and Boris is more equipped than myself. But unless you want to talk about what I was using 12, 20 years ago as technology platforms, but yeah, that's
Yeah, so there's a couple of different approaches we can take to having small tech and open source VR infrastructure. The first one, which for me would be great because it means everybody is a system administrator, is for everybody to self-host. However, this is harder than it sounds because we have to keep in mind we're not talking just about the technical people that know how to do it. We're talking about our family members, think of your parents, grandparents, or your kids, stuff like that. And it's funny to me, but when Dropbox initially launched, there was this review on Hacker News which goes, well, as a Linux user, you can build such a thing yourself. You just create an FTP server, and then you use this thing called curl FTPFS, and then we have SVM on top of that. And if you try to tell this to my mother, she will not understand a single word. So yeah, you can do it, but it's not always about being able to do it, but also allowing others to do as well. So the other step then is that as your team starts growing, but still in the phase where it's a small team, you usually get someone to take care of this for you. And we call them system administrators. Obviously, I think they're cool because I'm a system administrator, so that makes me biased. But the thing is that system administrators, at the end of the day, need a salary. And as a small team, this can be quite expensive depending on your resources. Did I want this? Yes, I did. Okay. Something that's been going on nowadays that has started mainly in France is that nowadays you have these collective and independent providers that offer their infrastructure and they give you access as well. So if you're looking to get started with not necessarily rudimentary, but maybe you haven't figured out all of the infrastructure you need, something like Redon, which in French means something like small kittens, is quite a good first step.
So these are collectives that provide open source platforms hosting for them to anyone that is interested. Some of them are by donation, some of them are for free, but have more of a non-for-profit character, more like a collective element towards it. And it's ideological, it makes sense, but it's also a good alternative for anyone that wants to get involved.
So the final, let's say, solution to this problem we're discussing is something that has started to happen recently. We're also part of this category, but there's also other people, like for example indie hosters, that manage all of the service for you, and in exchange of a subscription, you just get to use the platform. Similar to how in big tech, you don't have to set up the server that you're going to use yourself. You just start using the software.
So just an example. So your university, the university we're here, wants to have Nextcloud and not to have actually Microsoft 360 or any of the proprietary platforms. So they have all one of these four alternatives. The first is you buy the servers and you have someone managing it internally as part of your team, or you buy all the servers inside and you have someone paid to get in and set it up. You can go to an NGO that gives it for free but has certain limitations in terms of response time or other elements of it. Or you go to a small company that does it for a fee, right? Which is quite cheaper than having a system administrator in the house. Again, this is another joke about my age. Bend It Like Beckham was the worst movie I've ever seen. I was there, my sister at the time, she was obsessed with David Beckham. Obviously, he was well known back then. And there was no David Beckham on the movie, which was very sad for her. But anyway, so if you want to do it like us, as Boris mentioned before, if you want to be a managed service provider, we have 10 more minutes, no? Yes. So if you want to do it like us, here's how you can steal our business model and the way we do it, and you can do it yourself. And the reason we do it is because copyright and proprietary platforms and all these walls that are built to protect your intellectual property or whatever that is, if you're a big corporation, they just stop innovation. Like one good example is all the first movies of Disney, they were stolen by the Grimm brothers, right? The Grimm brothers were in public domain. But if you try to stream here in a public area, which is a university, and that's great about Greece, that you consider universities a public space. If you try to stream Cinderella here, you get a call or you get fined, right? And that's stupid because researchers cannot access the movie or papers that we are writing. We are usually after a wall that you need to pay. So copyright blocks innovation, and we want you to do what we're doing a little better, because we're going to remix it, we're going to do even better, and somebody else we're going to remix your business model, which is super, super nice. It's just like food recipes, right? And we got, you should do it just like Steal This Book. It was created by Abby Hoffman in 1971. It was a bestseller at some point. It sold lots of copies. It's unknown how many copies were stolen, actually, and we know that lots of them were stolen because it says in the title. And the idea was to have this feeling of, just share your knowledge of how to get against these centralized powers out there, right? And actually, Abby also used many of the practices that he wrote in the book when he was an activist out there. Okay, so this is the recipe. We can have also some questions after we're done. And this is a technical recipe, and I can also add on top of it some other elements of the business, how we do it. And after that, we're going to have a very quick announcement about who won the 1 year of free Nextcloud storage. We were accepting bribes for it to win. Nobody showed up, so we're going to be honest about it.
So we've had a couple of learnings along our way, because from our perspective, it's not just the infrastructure of one organization or one of our subscribers, it's many different infrastructures. So we had a couple of learnings. Some of them, luckily, like this, for example, we knew beforehand, but we want to share what we learned. So first things first, absolutely you need to have backups, and not just, okay, I configured backups and I checked 5 years ago and they were working. You need to pass continuous audits whether your backups still work. I know that backups are very complicated. One of the reasons it's complicated is usually you want to take a backup when all of your subscribers are asleep so that they don't edit anymore, right? So you have to do your backups at 3 a.m. Thing is, 3 a.m. here in Greece is very different from 3 a.m. in New Zealand. We don't happen to be at the same time. So there's quite a lot of factors that you need to keep in mind.
And you need to calculate all these elements before deploying.
Yeah, but it's very important that you give a lot of focus to backups. The second one is that monitoring systems, as it turns out, are pretty cool, because what monitoring systems allow you to do is, first of all, they allow you to be proactive. If there's an issue in your infrastructure, you know before your subscribers even do so. But the other thing is that what makes monitoring systems cool is that nowadays they have some small automatic fixes that they can apply. So for example, if a program is closed, the monitoring system knows to start it back up. The third thing has to do with something called DNS. DNS, I feel like it's a bit too much to explain all of it now. So in essence, what DNS does is a protocol or a system that translates URLs, like cloud68.co for example, into the actual address of the website, which usually we refer to it as an IP. IP, which is just a bunch of numbers that humans can't really remember. So, when it comes to DNS, there are two main types of DNS records we need to worry about right now. The first one is called an A record, which translates the domain into an IP. The second one is what we call CNAMEs. And CNAMEs are very cool because in the beginning for us, we were telling our subscribers, hey, you can create a main record and point to this IP. And that worked just fine. But then as we had to grow and change our infrastructure, when that IP changed, all of a sudden we had to wait for our subscribers as well to update their DNS. Otherwise, their site will be down. This is very avoidable if you use CNAMEs, because what CNAMEs allow you to do is point one domain to another, and that way you can sort of manage your own internal DNS and have your subscribers point to your DNS, which gives you more control. A very important category when it comes to infrastructure, probably the most exhausting category in my experience, has to do with security. And security is way too broad to be able to explain it properly in 20 or 30 minutes or even 2 days. But one thing that we notice is very helpful is that if your users only have to remember a single password, very statistically that password is going to be more secure because their head should store less passwords. So the way it looks like is that what you need to do, in our opinion, is that you need to see into single sign-on services for managing your infrastructure, which has its caveats, also its advantages, but we feel that by having a single sign-on and allowing users to remember a single password, it's easier to enforce security policies like two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and so on.
There are some password managers out there which are quite nice. Bitwarden is one of them. We really like using it at a personal level, but also some others on a company level as well.
When you start working with infrastructure en masse, on a high level, it's very hard for you to do the same action 50 times and make sure you did it exactly the same way 50 times. So you start using tools which are called...
One example is upgrading your Mattermost instance or Nextcloud instance, right? You can do it the same time.
You can do it by hand.
By hand, or...
But that's prone to human error, because every time you do it by hand, there is a possibility for you to do something slightly different. And that's why in infrastructure tools that are called configuration management tools are very, very important and helpful. They are also referred to infrastructure as code, but the thing we want to warn you guys in advance about infrastructure as code is that there can be something called infrastructure drift, which is when your code regarding infrastructure is no longer actually portraying what your infrastructure is like. So one example is that your code works for deploying Nextcloud 23, but all of your Nextclouds are running Nextcloud 24. This is a drift, and it's very concerning to have infrastructure drift because you want your instances to be as similar to one another. The final, I think this is the final.
No, there's
category.
one you can do it faster.
Yeah, high availability. It's inevitable that servers will fail at some point. We can sit here and say that's unfair, we don't want that to be that way, it's not going to change. So the way we deal with that is when we need one server, we get, well, I like to get 3, you can get even more, but we get a couple, because that way, if one of these servers all start acting as a group, and if one of them fails, you still have the others. It's no longer as visible when something goes wrong.
And they have the same data because they're interconnected, so even if 2 go down, you have one or other.
But the most important thing, finally, for me, I learned this the hard way, is that the most important thing when it comes to infrastructure is something that's not even technical. When you, as an infrastructure person, work on infrastructure, you read a lot of documentation, so you know how the software works in and out. You can't assume that everybody has read the same documentation you have, or that even they read it in the same amount as you did. So you need to be there to support your subscribers, whether that is with technical questions like, hey, my page isn't loading, but also with questions like, how do I change my password? How do I do this? How do I share that?
And the most important thing here, even if it sounds like, be nice to people, it's something easy. I don't know if you had any customer support, especially the mobile carriers are horrible. They say no and we don't do it and that's it. And by the way, we overcharged it for this call, all these things. The problem with being nice to technical support questions is that you cannot give someone that is working for tech support a guide on how to be nice. They either are or they're not. So it's very important to train someone that is doing this in order to be as nice and have a human connection, friendly as possible. And there is no book for it. It's you either are or no.
There were also no YouTube videos because I searched.
Yes, there are no YouTube videos. So, but it's very important. And one thing I want to add is that you need, and this is not we cannot give you any advice on this, but you also need, if you want to do the same thing as we are doing, you also need to have some legal advice because of all these laws like GDPR,
Digital Services
Act, California, something. Probably Greece has some other issues, some other laws regarding data protection. Each country has different things, and some people might get offended because they had a downtime of 2 minutes, right? And they might, they want to talk to you seriously. So legal advice, take it from people that know. I know there are a couple of lawyers in Greece that they are focused on this area, but there are in other countries as well. So before doing anything like this, the legal part is very important. And last but not least, if you are doing this open source thing, stick also to your internal infrastructure. So all our infrastructure is open source. We don't use any proprietary platforms there. It's very tempting to get things like, for marketing, like HubSpot or all these nice tools. But the data of the people that are trusting you with your service are going to all these third-party services, right? So we try to keep everything here. We try to keep everything in the EU countries. Because US.
For example, our monitoring system is actually Zabbix, which is an open source monitoring system. And same thing with backups or with ticketing systems and so on.
So if you want to do the same, and you have people that are, you probably have parents and aunts. I was talking to someone yesterday that said, I'm technical support for all my family. So if you want to do this for other people and get some offer this as a service to other people, we can go on about this, but we don't have the time. We're going to be downstairs. And if you want to technically learn how to deploy Nextcloud, it's going to be at
4:30
in the other room. Or just have a drink with us later on. We're going to be here also today in the evening, so feel free to ask us any questions. We'd be more than happy to have as many of us as possible. I know in Crete there is a very nice team that is doing this. I'm pretty sure in Athens or here, or I don't know about here, but in Athens there are some other teams that are doing what we're doing in a slightly different way. The more we are, the better, more people are going to move away from these evil big tech companies, and they're going to have the data in a, managed in a nicer way, let's say, right? In a more ethical way, which is a nice word, but it's also a big one. So we can do the draw now and answer the questions later, or if we have time. If we don't have, we can skip it. But again, once again, thanks the team, and thanks for joining the presentation for today. So one thing you should know about sysadmins is that they try to automate everything. So we could do this by just having a random number going to one of these websites with a number now and say, hey, number 3401, or
we can automate the command line.
Congratulations.
And have some fun. Yay.
So these are the people that registered, and this is totally random. You need to publish the code.
It's not even a code.
Is it XKCD random?
Sorry?
Is it XKCD random? Never mind. It's a joke about from a webcomic where the random numbers that is returned from a function is always 4.
Oh, like the BS3 security kind of thing. Yeah. No, it's similar to that, but it's a bit different. So I'm putting the command here in case you also want to check it. Essentially what it does is it gets the name out of all of the submissions randomly. Theodora.
Theodora?
I don't know if Theodora is here or not. Guess not.
Take a photo.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna email her about. By the way, this is the first name. It's very nice that the first name was not Yorgos, because like but yeah, we cannot share we're gonna email the person that did it or being on Twitter so that we know that it's there. And if you have an organization that is into privacy and things, just give us a call. We have schedule a call with us on our website, and we'd be more than happy to support you with providing infrastructure in any way we can for free or at least a amount of money. As long as you are into this area, like privacy, security, open source, and stuff like that. Thank you very much.